the Connecticut 2.0 plan. What you're going to see the difference, starting in this budget, but especially future years, is getting to a budget where we know the number now. It's not an actuarial number. It's not a number that's floating around. In 1 month, we have a exorbitant amount of claims, and all of a sudden our budget's shot. We're going to know pretty much at the beginning of the budget season, for the most part. The budget, the state is only out 3 quarters in advance, aren't they, with the rates? Like right now, we don't know what technically the rates are 12 months or 15 months from now.
Right.
But for the most part, we're going to know what the rates are. This first year, there's still a little uncertainty in that there's this trailing claim issue because we're self-insured. So after July 1st, when we start making our premium payments to the insurance company or to the state plan, there's still going to be all these trailing claims from our self-insured months or years of self-insurance that's going to trail, and we estimate based on past performance that to be $800,000 or so, and that has been again put into our budget planning. All right, so we're not going to, unless something goes really weird in the last couple months of our self-insured experience, we should be able to plan for that, and those numbers are there.
I guess I should, mention to this board, earlier in the year, we were estimating about a $1.6 million shortfall in that self-insurance fund that we have. However, December December in particular was a very good month, and that really went a long way to help decrease the amount of the end of the year projected deficit. And then January was also a good month. So worst case scenario, we're looking at a $730,000 deficit. Best case scenario, we're looking to be about $140,000 to the good. So, it's going to depend on how the remaining months go. But because the year started so bad, we were trailing at a 28.56% increase over last year. So we projected the rest of the year out at that rate. And then when we had a great month, like December was, I think, $529,000 in claims, whereas December of 2017 was over $800,000. So that made a huge impact on the projected deficit. So provided that the remaining months stay the same as last year, that's how we would end up being a little bit to the good. So,
and how much of that good to $730,000 is in the 2.2 million budget?
So at the end of the year, we're going to have trailing claims,
Right.
and that $200,000.
So you're forecasting, starting next fiscal year, to have $200,000 worth of trailing claims.
Well, about $800,000, but the town's responsibility for those claims is $200,000. So it's broken out into
Good point. Sorry.
different groups. So we have the town share, the Board of Ed share, water operations pays a share, is going to be responsible for a share, sewer operations, as is the library.
Yeah.
And that
So-
$200,000 is in this 2.2 million.
That's correct.
Thank
yes.
you.
Good point. I gave the wrong figures.
Okay.
Any other questions on this budget?
Yeah, I have a question on the legal. We came through all the law, 235 through the labor this year, with a legal expense of $6,200. We had budgeted $2,500. Why are we forecasting $35,000 for labor for public safety? Do we expect to have long drawn out legal
depends.
costs?
Oh,
It's-
I would hope not.
It just seems like it's 10,000 more than what we had for the town employees.
Well, that's because we have 3 public safety groups: police, dispatch, and fire, and their contracts are all expired. And so if we had to work on 3 contracts, that's the reason.
Do we expect any of those contracts to be completed this fiscal year? Are we in progress-wise, or not sure yet?
I can't. I'm hoping so. Yeah. Actually, I'm hoping so, but you can't plan, and then there's arbitration issues, and you gotta plan for the,
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle is what we plan for. But you're right, we'll have maybe one or two knocked out of the three, but it's a
Well,
good
It
point.
just seems that, you
Yeah.
know, between the employees, the union, and the town, that we haven't had, like in the past, too many long, drag-out battles. We sit down, put our things on the table, and it's been a very good job that saved us legal fees, and I would hope to save as much of this
Yeah.
35,000 as we could going forward.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Let me take a look at that again before we get to the end, and that might be a place where, based on current negotiations, and there's always an interest of getting it done before the fiscal year starts, because their health insurance is going up and they want raises and everything gets put on hold. So let me work on that number. And you had the labor town number, while we're saying that, you have a $6,200 figure sitting there, but that contract's done. Is that just in case we have grievances and
It's
things like
something-
that, or
there's
contra
a-
MOUs, that they come up through the year?
Mm.
Okay, so kind of a placeholder, and, because that is a minimal figure. Okay. Any other questions? We can go to 120, it's the last one. With tighter and tighter budgets, we typically look for money in our contingency to be able to be transferred as things happen in our town. We've typically have asked for 192 or even more money, and then when budget season starts kicking in, we look to, shave some money off. But $192,000 on a $24 million budget is not, in fact, it might be too low, but that's what we're asking for at this point, in this stage.
I think it's very low, considering that we were looking before at 160,000. That's almost a 50% reduction.
Yes.
Well, that's the payroll contingency. The first one is the payroll contingency, and the second one is the overall town contingency. So the payroll contingency is 81,000, and the reason for that is, so in this year's budget, the 160,000 included non-affiliated, our largest union, the UPSU union, police, fire, and the only bargaining group that wasn't included in that is the dispatchers. They're the only ones that had, their contract approved for this year. Now, going into next year,
What's sitting on
our
is this just
unaffiliated
fire?
wages have been approved, so that's in the
Right.
budget. The UPSU contract is in place, so
Done.
their wages are in the budget. So that's really police, fire, and dispatch. And
Is that 81? That's
Yes,
the 81.
so-
Police, fire, and dispatch. And
Right.
one or two of those could be done before we even get into this budget, which are just transfer into the budget lines. The contingency, though, the 300, 500, is all those departments, and when the big storms come and we don't have enough rock salt or those kind of things, emergencies throughout town, that's where we dip into when budgets fall short and unexpected things happen.
I think, considering what we've already mentioned, and Rosanna's brought up some of the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
things coming up, I think, as of right now, leave that figure.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with that
I would
figure.
leave it, and depending on
Yeah.
how things go, we may
Yeah.
want to increase it.
Yeah,
to some
I don't
extent.
see decreasing. Very good.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Actual expenses, I know there were no expenses in 18, but do you know how much of the contingency fund we ended up using?
And
And if you don't have it tonight, you can let us know.
I will
next
do
time.
that. That's a good question. And that's the problem, because most of the time we transfer it out, so that's why it shows no expenses.
Yeah, it's not a cost, but it's how much of the contingency
It's
fund that we
transfer.
use,
It's transferred
you know,
out.
Yeah.
and that would give you a little history of how much we've transferred.
It's a good point. I wonder if we could
Yeah.
do a run on
Be interesting to
typical
know.
contingency transfers over the years, maybe the last 2 or 3 years.
See how close we're. Yeah.
And if there was a bad storm year, we probably used more of it
Yeah.
than if
Yeah.
it wasn't. a bad
Over the
storm.
last couple of years, what we're doing, especially the Board of Finance was asking, is to really trim up the fire budget, and they were like right on the button, but if anything came up, and where those departments really get hurt is when someone is hurt. So we had some long-term
Police had some long-term
police
injuries and
and
medical.
fire, going out for surgeries and such like that. The overtime budget just shoots right up when that happens, because we run very minimal personnel in our town, and that's when they start tapping into contingency.
And, and I hate to, knock on wood, but with the budget Public Works puts in, and as tight as it
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
there's no doubt that there's gonna be something that takes place someday,
Someday, right.
and that Public Works is gonna need some help.
That's why
Whether
that's
it's a storm
there.
that damages road, or whatever the case may be,
Yeah, and that's why that's there, because you want it there. You don't want to go halfway through the year and then have to go into the rainy day account, the undesignated fund balance. You don't want to have to start borrowing against yourself. You'd rather have it sitting there to go get it. And anything that comes out of there, as you know, has to go through an appropriations process. So we don't just go get it and transfer it. We have to go through this Board of Finance, and town meeting.
Right.
So there's always that due diligence and public awareness. Any other questions on this?
I move to adjourn this
Second.
portion of the meeting.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We'll adjourn this meeting. We'll begin our next one at 7:30.